What is going on, guys? This is Brendan Burns, and welcome to the Brendan Burns Show. Join me as I interview, dissect, and share the stories of high performers who have created the life that they deserve on their terms. I sit down with speakers, professional athletes, and successful entrepreneurs from all over the world who have chosen to live a life of fulfillment and joy over status and money. In each episode, I share actionable strategies that you can implement in your life, plus inspiration along the way. So come join me for this episode of The Brendan Burns Show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Brendan Burns Show. It is May 29th, 2020. Recording this in Brooklyn, New York, and we're still in the midst of coronavirus, and with that, one silver lining has been the excellent content that we've seen on shows and documentaries. And I would say the most impactful documentary that I've seen, recently at least, has been ESPN's 10-part series called The Last Dance, which has 10 parts breaking down Michael Jordan and the 1997 to 98 Chicago Bulls. This was Jordan's last year as a member of the Bulls before retiring. He did come back briefly and play for the Wizards, but this was the height and apex of his career, and this documentary captures the whole story of that last season and a lot of excellent backdrop before that. I love studying success stories. I've done breakdowns on Bill Belichick, on the New England Patriots, on other successful people and individuals and organizations, and this is just another example of an opportunity for us to learn from arguably the greatest basketball player of all time and one of the greatest basketball dynasties of all time. Now, after I talk here for another 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to give you the audio from a breakdown analysis video that I did, breaking down some of my favorite clips from this documentary. I pull from the first episode, the 5th episode, and the 7th episode of the show, breaking down some of my favorite moments of Jordan being interviewed and kind of analyzing specific things that he did that made him so successful. So right now, this is just a little bit of a preamble. And what I want you to know as you listen to the actual audio of my breakdown, which will be coming up in just a few minutes, I share things like how Michael Jordan knew how to set boundaries with his teammates, with his coach, Phil Jackson, with the press. You're going to see an example of him, how he's handling the press and setting boundaries and commanding respect from the press. You're going to see an example of his work ethic and how he stayed focused on his goals. One of the biggest things that happened, one of the biggest criticisms about Michael Jordan was the fact that he didn't get more involved speaking out around politics and around protecting African American people's rights the way, for example, Muhammad Ali did. And you'll hear audio directly from the documentary, I share that in this episode, of Jordan defending his decisions. And I'm not saying he was right. I'm not saying he was wrong. I'm saying I respect the fact that he made a decision and he stuck to it. And he doesn't apologize. And he's unapologetically himself. Because one thing you'll hear is he talks about how focused he stayed on his goals. Because once you get out into the limelight like that, and forget being Michael Jordan, just take you right now. Think about your life and think about how every different person out there has a different idea of who you should be and how you should behave. Oh, you should live in this neighborhood. You should have this type of house. You should have this type of job. That was something that I personally went through when I was leaving my corporate America, my Wall Street days. When I'd made the decision that I was going to start my own business, if I had $1 for every person who told me not to or to do something else, I would have enough money I wouldn't even need to start my own business, because people just thought I should be doing something which was really just a projection of their desire to do it themselves and their inability to do it. People are constantly telling others how they should and shouldn't behave because they're afraid to go behave that way themselves. And MJ says, look, I'm not a political activist. Go be a political activist. You'll hear from a reporter. And the thing I love about this reporter is he's bashing Michael Jordan. He's saying, ultimately, Michael Jordan might be forgotten. And it's just for not being more politically active. And it's just so ironic because you're sitting here, you're watching a documentary about Michael Jordan, who many people agree is the greatest basketball player of all time. And you have some forgotten reporter. I don't know who that reporter is. No one else does. And so it's easy to sit in the cheap seats and tell other people what they should and shouldn't be doing. And Michael Jordan was very aware of that. And he said, you know what? Everyone's got a different idea of who I should be or shouldn't be. And I'm not going to let that get to me. And I'm not going to change who I am in order to appease other people. And that's something that I want you to get is you need to be who you really are. I don't want you to change the authentic truth of who you are listening to me right now because your mom or your dad or your aunt or your boss or your friends think that you need to be doing something else. And so that's the first clip I share from episode 5. Again, you'll hear that in a couple of minutes. I also talk a little bit about the nice guy syndrome, which is something I'm passionate about, and I've talked a lot about not being a nice guy or a nice girl, being too much of a pleaser. Remember, I had Dr. Robert Glover, the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, on my podcast, so you can go back and listen to that. It's in episode 50-something, I believe. And Jordan was another great example of that. There was an interview, you'll hear the audio in just a few minutes, of B.J. Armstrong, who was Jordan's teammate before leaving the Bulls and playing on the Charlotte Hornets. And Armstrong was saying, was Michael Jordan a nice guy? He couldn't have been. And so I want you to pay attention to the definition of the word nice in this context, because the goal isn't to go out in the world and be a jerk and say, I want this and this is who I am, right? You have to find that balance between being firm and kind. And what you'll see is some examples of Michael Jordan being that firm, potentially difficult, but intense and competitive person who, as a leader, couldn't please everyone. And he was comfortable speaking up, and he wanted to win, and he wanted his teammates to win. So the other kind of core message that you're going to get from the back half of my analysis, which is coming up, is you're going to hear Michael Jordan and his teammates and people talking about how he couldn't always be a nice guy. And I want you to think about where in your life are you being too nice potentially? Not too kind, not too gracious, but too much of a people-pleasing, I'm afraid of what people will think of me. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to speak up. I don't want to confront necessary conflict that I need to confront. This is where I think MJ really excelled as a leader and kind of a player coach and the captain of the team. Was he wasn't afraid to upset someone because he was going after something for the greater good of everyone involved. Now, was he a bully at times and did he go too far? Yes. I think if anyone is going to criticize Michael Jordan, and I'm not going to criticize him, I have so much respect for him, but if you look at any human being and you say, what's their growing edge, where could they continue to improve? I would say it's hard but necessary to balance your masculine energy with your healthy, authentic feminine, because every man has authentic feminine and every woman has authentic masculine. We all have both energies. And so who Michael was, the amount of energy and power and success, that's geared towards more the masculine energy, but he crossed the line sometimes into what's called shadow masculine energy. And that showed up with some of his drinking and gambling and maybe bullying if he went over that line. And I'm not really here to talk about that today. But I do want to just mention that and not condone that. If you study the documentary carefully the way I have, you can see him going over the line. And I'm not encouraging you to go there. But what I am trying to encourage people is there's so many listeners and so many people I've coached in groups and at events who are so far from that line. So I give you these examples to get you closer to being stronger, more firm, more direct, and more open. And so that's all. Nobody's perfect. I'm not saying that everything Jordan said I totally agree with. But a lot of people have come out and criticized him for what he said. And I think they are being very sensitive. And anyway, I'll let you guys make your decisions on that. Without further ado, Here is my audio from my Michael Jordan The Last Dance documentary analysis breakdown. Enjoy. How would you like to learn from the best basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan, so that you can be successful in life, making more money, starting a business, or just being a winner in general? I'm Brendan Burns, and I show you how to get the life that you want. Hit that subscribe button now, and let's get into it. In the ESPN documentary The Last Dance, we get a behind-the-scenes take on Michael Jordan and the 1997 Chicago Bulls. In this video, I break down the powerful behaviors of MJ so that you can learn from him and become a winner too. Let's start by watching a clip from the documentary.
It certainly can be a very emotional situation for me.
Have you talked with him at all throughout?
Are y'all gonna talk about the game, or y'all gonna talk to Scotty?
A little bit of both.
Well, you talk to Scotty to answer Scotty's reply.
Okay, what about the game then?
There you go.
Something that Michael Jordan does exceptionally well throughout this documentary, that he did throughout his career, is he knew how to set boundaries. He knows how to stay in control, and he does this not only with the press in this example, but with his teammates too. It is important to be kind and to be gentle and to be nice in certain aspects, but in other areas you have to be firm, you have to be powerful, and you have to alert people around you when their behavior is not okay and you're not interested in that. But here's another clip. Check this out.
Ultimately, Michael Jordan may be forgotten. Muhammad Ali won't be forgotten.
I do commend Muhammad Ali for standing up for what he believed in, but I never thought of myself as an activist. I thought of myself as a basketball player. I wasn't a politician when I was playing my sport. I was focused on my craft. Was that selfish? Probably, but that was my energy. That's where my energy was.
One of the powerful things about Michael Jordan is that he didn't do what other people told him to do. He stayed focused on who he was and what his goals were. So number one, even when it disappointed others, even when others wanted him to be a different version of himself, he didn't listen to that, he didn't take that in, and he stayed focused on not doing what other people told him to. And number two, he stayed focused on his goals. Throughout his entire career and life, he had one goal every year, which was for the Chicago Bulls to win the NBA championship. So much happens in life where you start to have success and you start to become more under the microscope, and people want you to behave in different ways to meet their needs. Had he become more of a political activist, had he done certain things that other people wanted him to do, it would have distracted him from his core goals, and he would not have been the best of all time. So don't do what other people tell you to do, and stay focused on what you know are your core goals. Let's go ahead and watch another clip from the documentary.
It's never going to be enough for everybody. I know that. I realize that, because everybody has a preconceived idea in terms of what they think I should do and what I shouldn't do. The way that I go about my life is I set examples. And if it inspires you, great. I will continue to do that. If it doesn't, then maybe I'm not the person that you should be following.
Michael knew that in life there are different people that fill different niches. So he continued to own who he was, and he said, look, if you're looking for someone who's highly competitive, who's disciplined, who works hard, who's a winner, who's an athlete, who's focused on one thing and doing it well, if you want someone to inspire you to do those things, you watch me. If you want a politician, if you want a grassroots activist, if you want an environmentalist, there's nothing wrong with those things. Those are amazing and noble paths, but that's not who I am. And again, what Michael did was he owned who he was, and he didn't try to do everything. One of my favorite quotes is, if you try to make a product that everyone will love, nobody's going to love it. Stay in your lane, be the best version of yourself, and learn from Michael here. Let's go ahead and keep going.
Was he a nice guy? It couldn't have been nice. With that kind of mentality he had, he can't be a nice guy. He would be difficult to be around if you didn't truly love the game of basketball. He is difficult.
One of the things about successful leaders is they have to balance being kind and gracious with being strong and firm. And so Michael possibly erred on the side of a combination of strong and firm and going too far over the line, but we can learn from this differential that everyone has between they don't want to be mean and they just want to be nice. And so when this the interviewee says, was Michael a nice guy? He wasn't nice in the sense of he wasn't a people pleaser. Michael knew how to be firm, he knew how to speak up, and he knew how to be a player coach and really a leader of his team. So if you're in any position, either a business owner, you manage people, you're in a relationship, there are going to be times where you have to speak your needs and speak your truth and make asks. What you want is important, and in his career as a player, Michael Jordan was not afraid to speak up, and this is something that I really want you to see here with another clip as well.
Winning has a price, and leadership has a price. So I pulled people along when they didn't want to be pulled. I challenge people when they don't want to be challenged. And I earned that right because my teammates came after me. Didn't endure all the things that I endured.
As a leader, you will not please everyone. And if you have expectations of success, that's going to roll off onto people around you. And so you have to continue to get comfortable speaking up. Not everybody's going to like it. People are going to say you're mean. People are going to say bad things about you. Michael Jordan had plenty of critics saying these types of things. As a leader, you're not going to make everyone around you happy. But by being firm while also maintaining kindness and a gentle side, you are going to push people to become the absolute best versions of themselves. And this is something that Michael did. When he came in, he turned around this team, the organization, the players, and as a leader, not everyone always liked him in practices, in games, in the playoffs. But ultimately, by speaking up and having these high expectations, he wasn't a people pleaser, but he got the results that he wanted out of people, and he pushed people to become the best versions of themselves. Let's wrap up with a final clip.
I wanted to win, but I wanted them to win and be a part of that as well.
The results speak for themselves. To recap, Michael Jordan didn't do what other people told him to do. He stayed focused on his goals. He owned who he was, and while he could be kind and gracious, he was not too nice, and he knew that as a leader, you can't always please everyone. I'm Brendan Burns, and thanks for watching another one of my videos. Make sure to hit that subscribe button now for access to and updates on all my new YouTube videos, and make sure to subscribe to The Brendan Burns Show, my podcast that's featured on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you haven't already, please leave a written podcast review. This helps the show get to more people like you and help more people find the show. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Brendan Burns Show. If it's your first time here, please make sure to subscribe on the Apple Podcasts app or in Spotify. Also, please leave us a rating or written review. This helps others learn about the show and spread the word to new and more people. Lastly, if you're looking to take your personal life, business, or career to the next level and you want access to me as well as my community of like-minded people, head over to courses.brendanhburns.com and join us in Mastery Academy, my membership site that comes with online course content as well as live coaching calls every 2 weeks hosted by me personally. Thanks again for listening and have a great day.